I still remember the way her hand brushed mine, like she was testing if I'd pull away first. I didn't. I couldn't. Something in her touch felt like a question I'd been waiting to answer all my life. She was older, mid-40s maybe, though she carried it like a secret no one was allowed to guess. Everything about her was composed. The way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the way her sentences stopped just before they gave too much away. Even silence seemed to bend toward her, like the world owed her its attention. I met her at a small art studio downtown, where the light always came in soft and slanted, dust floating in the air like it didn't want to leave. I wasn't supposed to notice her that way. She was my instructor for a short community class I'd joined to get out more. But the first time she leaned over my shoulder, her perfume, something faint and warm, made me forget the point of the assignment. "You're pressing too hard," she said quietly, her voice steady, close. Her hand rested over mine to guide it. The moment lasted too long to be professional, too short to feel accidental. I wanted to speak, to joke, to say something harmless, but my throat tightened instead. I just nodded, eyes fixed on the paper, while her fingers adjusted the angle of my wrist. "There," she murmured. "Now let the line breathe." But she didn't pull her hand away. Not right away. The line we drew wavered slightly, like even the pencil wasn't sure what to make of the pause between us. She straightened, finally, and walked to the next table, graceful, deliberate. I exhaled only when she was gone, realizing I'd been holding my breath the whole time. Around me, the room buzzed faintly with other people talking, brushes clinking in jars, chairs scraping the floor. But none of it felt real compared to that fleeting contact. Over the next few weeks, I found myself timing my arrivals to hers. She'd always be there before me, arranging the materials, humming softly. I started recognizing her little habits, how she rolled her sleeves up just once, how she tapped her ring against the edge of the table when thinking. Tiny rhythms that became too familiar too fast. We never talked much outside of class instructions. Still, every conversation felt like it carried something heavier beneath. When she smiled, it was the kind that lingered in the air after she turned away, a ghost of warmth that refused to leave. Sometimes I'd catch her glancing at me, quick, almost guilty, and she'd look down as if caught in a thought she shouldn't be having. One evening, the power flickered during a thunderstorm. The lights went out for barely 10 seconds, but it was enough. I felt her hand again, this time finding mine in the dark, instinct, not reason. Warm. Steady. The kind of touch that doesn't ask for permission. When the lights blinked back on, she didn't look at me right away. Her expression was calm, too calm. But her hand trembled as she withdrew it. Sorry," she said softly. "Reflex." I wanted to tell her I didn't mind. That I wished the lights had stayed out. Instead, I just nodded again, too young, too unsure of what I was already feeling. She gave a small, unreadable smile, gathered her things, and walked toward the door. The rain was still coming down hard outside, echoing in the quiet room. Just before she stepped out, she turned back, her eyes meeting mine for a moment that felt like a held breath. Then the door opened, and someone else called her name. The next class felt different after that night. The storm had passed, but something in the air hadn't cleared. She greeted everyone the same, polite, professional, but when her eyes met mine, she hesitated. Just a flicker. Then the mask returned. I told myself I'd imagined it. That the touch in the dark meant nothing. Still, my hand remembered hers, the quiet steadiness of it, and I kept wondering if she remembered too. She wore her hair tied up that day, revealing a faint line of silver near her temple. I couldn't stop looking. Every time she leaned over someone's work, her perfume drifted faintly through the room, jasmine, maybe, mixed with turpentine and coffee. It hit me like a memory I didn't own. When she finally came to my table, I sat straighter, pretending to focus. She glanced at my sketch, then at me. "You've improved," she said, voice even. "Your lines aren't fighting you anymore." I almost smiled, but there was something careful in her tone, like she was trying not to sound too kind. She noticed the smudge of graphite on my wrist and reached out, instinctively, to wipe it off. Then she stopped halfway and drew her hand back. Sorry, she murmured. Habit. Her wedding ring glinted faintly under the fluorescent light. A small detail, one she never mentioned, and no one else seemed to notice. I wondered if she still wore it for someone who was gone, or for the sake of what used to be. That night after class, I stayed behind to clean brushes. She lingered too, pretending to sort supplies. The silence between us was thick, the kind that makes you aware of every movement, every breath. You don't talk much, she said suddenly. I talk when it matters. She gave a quiet laugh, soft but tired. That's a rare trait. I wanted to ask what had made her sound so sad. But I didn't. Maybe I was afraid she'd actually tell me. Instead, I asked, Do you ever draw any more? For yourself, I mean. She looked up, surprised. Not lately. Why not? Her eyes met mine, searching, unreadable. Because it's hard to draw when you're trying not to feel anything. I didn't know what to say to that. The words hung between us, fragile as the scent of turpentine. She turned away, pretending to tidy the counter. Her fingers trembled slightly. Everyone leaves eventually, she said, almost to herself. So I stopped making things that made me care. I stepped closer without thinking, just close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from her. She noticed but didn't move. Her breath caught faintly, a sound that said more than her words ever did. For a long moment, we stayed there, not touching, just suspended in something neither of us could name. Then the janitor's keys jingled from the hall. She stepped back, quickly. I should lock up, she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I nodded, gathering my things. As I passed her by, my shoulder brushed hers, light, accidental, but enough. She inhaled sharply. Good night, she whispered. It wasn't what she said that stayed with me. It was the way she didn't move until I was gone. The studio felt smaller that evening, air heavy, light dimmer than usual. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was her. Either way, something had shifted again. She was standing by the window, looking out at the street. Her reflection floated faintly on the glass, her hand resting on the sill. I caught myself watching her longer than I should have, the way her fingers tapped, the way she bit her lip before turning around. You're early, she said, surprised. So are you. She smiled, but her eyes didn't linger. Habit, she said again, the same word she'd used before, the one that seemed to mean everything she couldn't say. We worked in silence, our easels only a few feet apart. Every sound felt louder than it should, the scratch of charcoal, the ticking clock, the faint hum of the heater. I tried to focus, but I could feel her moving behind me, the soft shuffle of her shoes, the brush of her sleeve as she passed. She came close to look at my sketch, her voice low. You're holding back again. Maybe I'm afraid of what it'll look like if I don't. Her laugh was quiet, almost sad. Then you understand more than most. When she leaned in, her shoulder brushed mine. Just enough to make my pulse stutter. She didn't move right away. Her breath touched the back of my neck, warm and steady. For a second, I thought she might rest her hand there. Instead, she stepped back, clearing her throat. The door creaked. One of the other students poked her head in, a friend of hers, older, familiar. Didn't think you'd still be here, the woman said. Locking up soon? Almost, she replied quickly, a little too quickly. Her posture changed, straight, distant, professional again. Her friend's eyes drifted between us, curious. Don't stay too late, she said, teasing, before leaving. The silence that followed was unbearable. She thinks something's going on, I said quietly. Her eyes flicked toward me. Is there? I didn't answer. The sound of rain started outside again, soft, rhythmic, like the night we first touched. She walked closer, stopping just in front of me. Her expression was unreadable, her hand hovering near mine but not touching. People talk, she whispered. They always do. I don't care. She looked up sharply, as if the words had hit her harder than I meant them to. "You should," she said. But her voice trembled. A moment stretched, too long, too close. Her fingers grazed my wrist, light as breath. My heart jumped. Her eyes dropped to my mouth, then away again. She took a step forward, and I didn't move. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she said softly. "Then stop standing so close." Her lips parted, a soundless reply. The distance between us vanished for half a heartbeat. Every nerve screamed to close the gap. But then, somewhere in the hallway, a phone buzzed. Her phone. The sound broke everything. She pulled away, fumbling for it, her hand trembling as she silenced the screen. A man's name flashed before she turned it face down. When she finally met my eyes again, her guard was gone, just for a second. There was fear there, yes, but something else too. Something she didn't want to fight anymore. She didn't speak. She just reached out and brushed the graphite from my hand again, the same spot she'd stopped herself from touching before. This time, she didn't stop. She avoided me for a week after that. I still came to class, still pretended not to notice the distance. But I did. She spoke to everyone else the same, calm, patient, precise. Only when it was me did her voice falter, her sentences shorten, her eyes find somewhere else to land. When the others left one evening, I lingered again, packing my things slowly. She was cleaning the pallets, her sleeves rolled up, her wrist bare this time. No ring. I don't know when she'd stopped wearing it. "You don't have to stay," she said without looking up. "I know. Then why do you?" I didn't have an answer. Maybe she didn't want one. She finally turned, leaning against the counter. The low light caught the edges of her face, tired, beautiful, uncertain. "You're too young to waste time on things that can't go anywhere," she said. "That what this is?" I asked quietly. "A waste?" She hesitated, then shook her head, almost angry at herself. "No. That's the problem." The silence between us tightened. I took a step closer. She didn't move. Her breath hitched just slightly, enough for me to hear it. "I keep thinking about that night," I said. "The dark. Your hand." Her eyes closed for a moment, then opened again. "You shouldn't. But you do." Her lips parted as if to deny it, but the line never came. I reached up, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. She froze, not from fear, but something else. My fingers grazed her cheek. She didn't step back. "You think this is simple?" she whispered. "You think wanting is enough? I think it's the only thing that feels real right now." Her hand came up, catching my wrist before I could pull away. The warmth of her skin burned through the space between us. She stared at me like she wanted to memorize something she shouldn't. Then her expression changed, not softer, but sharper, conflicted. "You have no idea what this would cost," she said. "Then let me decide if it's worth it." Her breath trembled near my jaw as she whispered. "You don't understand what it's like to be seen like this, after years of pretending." I didn't answer. I couldn't. For a moment she leaned in, close enough that her forehead nearly touched mine. I could feel her breath against my lips, uneven, uncertain. My hand rested on her waist before I realized it, and she didn't stop me. The sound of rain started again outside, soft but relentless. The smell of turpentine mixed with something warm, skin, breath, want. "I shouldn't," she murmured. "I know." But neither of us moved. The lights flickered once, buzzing faintly overhead. Somewhere in the hallway, a door slammed, too close, too real. She startled, stepping back, her hand falling from mine. For a second, either of us breathed. Then, with her voice low, almost breaking, she said, "If you stay any longer, I won't stop this time." I didn't move. Neither did she. The clock on the wall ticked once, sharp, final, and then the room fell silent. The rain had stopped by the time I reached the studio the next day, but the air still carried its weight, that strange mix of calm and tension that always seemed to follow us. She was already there, standing near the window again, arms crossed. Her hair was down this time, and she looked different, softer somehow, but uneasy. When she turned, I saw it, a message open on her phone, glowing faintly on the desk. My name in the preview line. You read it? She asked before I could say anything. I didn't mean to. But you did. Her voice was sharp, not angry, just stripped of its usual calm. I hesitated, unsure what I'd actually seen, but the words that stuck out were enough. Asterisk, he's too young. End it before someone gets hurt. Asterisk. Who was it? I asked quietly. My sister, she said after a pause. She came by last week. I told her too much. Her eyes lowered, hands tightening around her sleeves. She thinks I'm only enough to make mistakes. That you're one of them. I stepped closer, trying to meet her gaze. Is that what you think? I think she might be right, she said, barely above a whisper. I wanted to speak, to tell her she was wrong, that whatever this was, this ache between us, didn't feel like a mistake. But the words wouldn't come out. She turned away, pressing her palms against the edge of the table. I wasn't lying about the ring, she said finally. He's gone. Has been for years. But I still wear it when I need to remind myself not to want things I can't have. She faced me again then, eyes shining under the dull light. And then you showed up. The distance between us dissolved before I could think. I reached for her, but she stepped back, bumping into the stool behind her. The sound echoed in the empty room. Don't, she said, though she didn't move away. Her voice trembled. If you touch me now, I won't be able to stop pretending. Then don't, I said quietly. Her breath came unevenly. The air felt thick with everything we'd been trying not to say. She looked at me for a long moment, eyes wide, scared, wanting. Then, slowly, she reached up and brushed her fingers along my jaw. I can't promise you anything, she whispered. Not tomorrow, not even tonight. I'm not asking you to. The touch lingered, tender, dangerous, before she pulled her hand away. Someone saw us the other night, she admitted, voice barely steady. The woman from class. She asked me if something was going on. I told her no. Her lips curved in a sad half-smile. It was the first time I've lied in years. I took a slow breath, stepping closer again until there was almost no space between us. Then let's stop pretending, I said. Her fingers trembled where they rested against her chest. For a heartbeat, I thought she'd lean in, close that last inch. Instead, she whispered, then everything changes. I didn't move. Neither did she. Outside, thunder rolled again in the distance, faint, but enough to make her flinch. She looked up at me, eyes uncertain, and said the words that would ruin the space we'd been hiding in. Then maybe it should. The next evening, I found her in the same place, the studio half dark, blinds drawn, the hum of the heater filling the quiet. She didn't look up when I entered. Her hands were folded around a mug that had long gone cold. I told her, she said, still facing the window. Who? The woman from class. I told her there was something between us. The words landed like a chord struck too hard. My pulse quickened, but she still didn't move. And? She said I should end the class. That people talk. That it would ruin me. Her voice was steady, but her shoulders weren't. I could see the way she gripped the mug, white-knuckled, as if letting go might make it all too real. I walked toward her slowly. Do you want to end it? She turned then, eyes red-rimmed, tired. I don't know what I want anymore. The space between us was a heartbeat wide. She looked at me like she was waiting for an answer I couldn't give. I can't keep pretending this is harmless, she said, her voice breaking on the last word. You look at me like I'm someone I used to be, and She stopped herself, shaking her head. You make me remember what it felt like to be wanted for the right reasons. I reached for her hand, slowly enough that she could stop me. She didn't. Her skin was cool against mine, but she didn't pull away. My thumb brushed over her wrist, the same spot she touched me a dozen times before, each one harder to forget. You don't have to be alone in this, I said. That's the problem, she whispered. I've spent years learning how to be. Her breath trembled, her forehead almost touching my chest now. The scent of her hair, faintly floral, faintly rain, filled the air. I could feel her heartbeat against mine, uneven, searching. This isn't fair to you, she murmured. Maybe not, I said, but it's real. Her fingers tightened around mine. And what if it ends badly? Then at least it was something worth remembering. Her eyes lifted then, and for the first time, she didn't look afraid. The hesitation that had haunted her was gone, replaced by something quiet, sure. I brushed a strand of hair from her face. She leaned into the touch, eyes fluttering shut. You shouldn't, she whispered again. I know. Neither of us moved. The moment stretched, fragile, perfect. Her breath grazed my jaw. My hand slid to the back of her neck, holding her there, not pulling her closer, just keeping her from slipping away. Her lips parted, a breath away from mine. The world felt still. Then she spoke, barely a sound. Don't make me choose if you already know how this ends. I hesitated, my voice low. I do. Her eyes opened, and in them, everything we'd both been fighting finally gave way. She leaned in, closing the space at last, not a surrender, but a decision neither of us could undo. When her hand found mine, she whispered, Then let it be real. And for the first time, it was. The night after, the studio stayed empty. I half expected her to vanish, to leave things unfinished like a brushstroke stopped midair. But when I walked in the next morning, the light was soft through the blinds, and she was there, sitting on the floor beside the easel, barefoot, a half smile tugging at her lips. I thought you weren't coming, she said. I almost didn't. Her eyes flicked up, searching mine for what I meant. Then she nodded, as if she already knew. Me too. For a moment neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't heavy anymore, just quiet, comfortable, like the air after a storm. I told her, she said finally, tracing a line in the dust with her finger. My sister. I told her it wasn't a mistake. And what did she say? She said maybe it isn't. Maybe it's just something that doesn't need to last forever to be real. I let that sink in. The words didn't hurt, they just settled somewhere deep, where truth usually hides. When she looked at me again, her eyes were softer, tired in the way people get when they've stopped fighting themselves. I don't know what happens next, she said quietly. But I don't want to pretend it didn't happen. I crossed the room, slow enough that she could have stopped me. She didn't. When I sat beside her, our shoulders brushed, light, electric, grounding. For once, there wasn't a rush to fill the space. We just sat there, side by side, breathing the same small air. After a while, she reached out, not to pull me closer, not to start something again, but to take my hand. Her fingers fit between mine like they'd done it 1,000 times before. I used to think being older meant knowing better, she said with a small laugh. Turns out it just means knowing what you'll regret if you walk away. I smiled, not sure what to say. So I didn't say anything. Outside, the rain started again, soft, steady, like the world was washing itself clean. She leaned her head against my shoulder, her hair warm against my neck. No words. No promises. Just presence. And for the first time, that felt like enough. When she finally spoke, it was barely above a whisper. You'll keep painting? Only if you keep being the reason I do. She laughed, quiet, real, and squeezed my hand once before letting it rest again. The studio lights flickered on as the clouds shifted, catching the edge of her ring, a faint gleam against her skin. She didn't hide it this time. We stayed like that, two people who had finally stopped pretending, content in a moment that didn't need to last forever to mean everything. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?